On the evening of Thursday, February the 11th, 2024, Harrison Township medics transported a 22-month-old child to Dayton Children's Hospital for a head laceration. The toddler's mother and her girlfriend told medical personnel and the deputy sheriffs that the child must have fallen and struck his head on a metal table in their residence. That was her story. To the hospital staff, their children's. The hospital staff notified the sheriff's office as well as Montgomery County Children's Services because they had concerns about the possible child abuse to this child. The boy's injuries simply were inconsistent with the story that the mother told the hospital personnel. So after initially denying it, the child's mother admitted that he had found her loaded firearm and had accidentally shot himself in the head with her loaded gun. While the boy's injuries were significant, he's expected to recover. Today, the defendant, 24-year-old Rashonda Rogers of Harrison Township, has been indicted by the Montgomery County Grand Jury for 3 counts: endangering children, tampering with evidence, and having weapons of disability. The co-defendant, 23-year-old Darielle Brazel, also of Harrison Township, has been indicted by the Montgomery County Grand Jury for obstructing justice. Now, millions of children live in homes with firearms, and by some estimates, as many as 1 in 3 families of children are living in homes with firearms. Many times, those weapons are not stored properly. They're loaded, and they're unlocked, and they're available. Children are naturally curious and simply do not understand the danger of firearms and the problems with handling firearms. Furthermore, a child can easily mishandle a firearm and unintentionally shoot themselves or others. The National Safety Council reports that approximately 500 children are killed each year in accidental shootings. Here in Montgomery County, we have had several cases in the past several years finding a parent's unlocked firearm. Children find it and they shoot themselves or others. Another related issue we face is when children take a firearm to school. We have had way too many, an unacceptable amount of instances of this in our own children taking guns to schools here in our community. Where do these children get their guns? Well, they're not going to the gun store and buying them. Most of the time, they're getting the gun from home, from where it's easily accessible, unfortunately. In addition to guns in schools, another concern that we have is when older children obtain a firearm and use it to commit a violent crime. Many times those firearms are either stolen from a parent or purchased on the street. Today, I'm announcing a new campaign addressing the issue of unsafe firearm storage. And it's so very important, and it's going to coincide with our Child Abuse Prevention Month, which is April. But due to the facts of what we're seeing here, especially in this 22-month-old child being shot in the head with a firearm, with a gun that his mother had, laying right there, fully loaded, a gun that she was not even allowed to own. So we're starting this new campaign, I Am Today, working with Key Ads and Stephen Keys. We have designed a new billboard that is starting today. You'll see it in the billboards around the county today. 75% of kids know where your firearm is hidden. And here's what it'll look like. And I think you can see about how that the hidden is in quotes, because it's just ridiculous. The children are finding these guns because they know where it's hidden. There's no question about it. And we're seeing this repeatedly. And we simply cannot sit by and do nothing. Every responsible gun owner stores their firearms safely. Whether or not there are children in the home, it just makes no difference. We always store and should store our guns safely. If a child's in the home, always keep firearms unloaded and stored properly or locked in a safe. Also, it's a good idea to have your ammunition stored in a separate location, again, away from the firearm, but especially away from children. It's just irresponsible not to. So it seems to me, and this is part of the message today, using common sense and being responsible and not being careless, we can lessen the number of children injuring or killing themselves or others. So that's where we are. So hopefully this will at least appeal to some people to say, you know, I wonder, maybe I should think about where I'm storing and keeping my firearm, especially when many times they're not even there and they're leaving the guns out. That's it. Questions?
I mean, the message that you're trying to send to gun owners is take that extra time to get a lock or a safe?
Yes. And you know what? If somebody, I'm going to make it easy. And if somebody says, well, I don't know, I don't have a lock, or I don't know where to get, or I inherited this gun, I don't know what to do. Where do I get a gun lock? If you can't find a gun lock, you call my office, I will give you a gun lock. Make it very simple. There are too many children having access to guns, and in this particular case, I mean, this child is lucky to be alive.
Can I ask, so two of those charges sound like they were related to, the cover-up, in other words, like, because, one of them was endangering children, and the other one was like, I guess, having a gun under disability, and then the other one was like tampering with evidence. If the person was allowed to have a gun, would the child endangerment charge, I guess, what are the range of charges you can file in a case like this? Is it usually child endangerment?
Well, certainly, like in this particular case, where the gun is loaded and left unattended and simply available for a child to pick up, it's just crazy talk. People do that. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. And it's doubly so in this particular case, is this defendant, she was a fugitive from justice out of Michigan. And she had been convicted of misdemeanors and offenses up there on probation and had absconded. So there's no way she should even, herself, she shouldn't even possession of a gun. And not only is she in possession of a gun, she has her girlfriend go out and buy it because she knows there's going to be a problem with her trying to buy it. Girlfriend buy and brings it home, and there it is for the child. I have pictures that are very disturbing of this child. I will be glad to show them to you, but I don't think you're going to want to put it on camera. But they're very disturbing of how this child was shot straight up above his left eye. And just by the grace of God, had it been, a quarter of an inch either way, he would have basically, it went right through his head, through his brain. And so he's recovering. Whether he's going to have full use of that left eye, we're not sure yet. He has stippling, metal fragments in his eye, around on his skin, in his face. And all you have to do is anyone look at these pictures, and it's a no-brainer. Store the firearm correctly. That's all we're asking.
If the kid would have died with it, do you think it would have been a different charge at all, or do you still think it would have been child endangerment?
Oh, there would have been a different charge.
Okay.
There's no question.
Man's involvement?
Well, it depends on the circumstances, but there would have been an additional charge, no question about it.
Mr. Heck, is the mother, does she have a bond at all?
She's in jail now, and she's under a $100,000 bond.
The message that you want to get out to all parents, regardless of whether or not they own a gun or not, is to use common sense. There are gun locks that are free and they're available to everybody who wants one.
Anybody, if they can't, when someone buys a gun, when you go out and buy a gun at a reputable gun store, they give you with the purchase of the gun, of the firearm, whether it's a handgun, shotgun, rifle, they'll give you a lock because they realize how important it is. They sell these guns and they realize the importance of safety. If for some reason somebody doesn't have, they lost it, the gun was given to them, they didn't get a gun, call me. I will get you a gun lock free. There's no excuse then for not locking up and keeping your gun safe.
We've seen a number of these kinds of shootings over the years. Do you feel like Ohio law and local laws give you the tools you need to be able to, prosecute people who are, careless with their guns and there are conditions that lead up to a child shooting themselves. I mean, do you feel like the law is pretty good at addressing those concerns?
Well, the legislature has reviewed several laws over the past several years. The governor, he mentioned about strengthening gun laws. I don't know what he's doing, if he is doing something, if he's not doing something. That's the legislature. But certainly, if we find people are violating the gun laws as they are, we're going to prosecute them.
Mr. Heck, what's the maximum sentence that a person?
It's 3 years, right? Each one.
Endangering charge, no, each one is 3 years.
3 years, the maximum on each count.
And what will happen to the child at this point?
We have already filed a motion to remove the child. Obviously, the child has been removed, and we're filing a motion for permanent custody to Children's Services.
And last but not least, at least for me, is there a past history with this particular parent with the child?
Well, as far as her and the child, we don't have that because they're originally from out of state. We're in the process of looking into that, and my child protection unit will look into those issues. But certainly, she should not have had the gun. No way.
Just talk about, in general, about with this message, you just want to make sure, you were mentioning earlier that how this could have been more tragic than it already is. Talk about this message, you want to make sure that these parents that may even have responsible ownership or ownership of the gun legally, just to avoid further tragedy for their family.
Well, exactly. It's not just about the owner, and avoiding charges. It's about protecting our children and protecting our neighbor. Or, we've had cases here, and you've all seen it because you reported on. We had one down in a park here, not too far from here, where a child is playing with a gun. He shouldn't have had the gun, got it from home, a relative, and he shoots his friend. Now, not only is that wrong, and he shouldn't have had the gun, but can you imagine the guilt that child has to carry around the rest of his life for shooting, possibly killing his best friend? So that's what I just want the message to be. When you have your guns, just store them safely. Keep them out of the hands of children.
Did you consider any other charges in this case, or is child endangerment, do you think, the perfect, the right offense to charge? I know there are 2 other charges, but is child endangerment usually, the go-to criminal charge in cases like this?
Well, it depends on the circumstances. Everything is fact sensitive. But like in this case, we reviewed all the different charges that might be available, and these are the ones that I know that that we looked at, and certainly that we thought was proper, and the grand jury thought was proper, and that's why he was indicted. Brian Moore, who's the chief prosecutor on this case, he took it to grand jury, so he's aware of what's going on.
Did PADS, did you make a buy with them, or are they donating these?
A combination.
Okay.
A combination. Yes, they are very, those individuals that own key ads, they're hunters. So when I presented this to them, they were all in favor of it. They agreed with me 100%, and I'm aware of that, how to properly store a firearm and keep it out of the hands of children. So when I mentioned that to them, they said, absolutely. And I said, well, as soon as we can do this, I'd like to be before Child Abuse Awareness Month. And he called me this morning. He said, is today okay? He said, let's get it on right away. He said, I think this is a strong message that all of us gun owners, most of us know, but remind people, because it never hurts just to remind people, because people do make mistakes. This was no mistake.
Do you think there's any other useful ways to remind people in addition to the billboard campaign? Do you think handouts to gun owners or people that are, I don't know, seeking, I guess there's not permit needs like there used to
I
be.
would think, like I say, when you buy a gun from a reputable gun store, my experience is they give you a lock with that gun. Now, I don't know what more you have to do to tell people, here it is. Obviously you're not going to lock it when you're using it, but if it's unattended, you're not in the room, and there's children in the home, pretty obvious to me. Well, I appreciate you all covering this and getting the message out. If you want to see the pictures, I'll be glad to show them to you. I don't think you want to film them because, again, they're very graphic, and they're just shocking to me. And again, this child is just very lucky. It's unfortunate what happened, We'll see, hopefully, God willing, he will not lose his eyesight, but it's tough.
Thank you, Prosecutor.
Okay?